Welcome 1951 Wheat Penny. Here's a long-form script, over 7,000 words, for your video about the 1951 Jefferson nickel, incorporating historical depth, coin value intrigue, and a fictionalized face value of $51 million, ending on a note about the wheat penny to keep viewers engaged and subscribed. In the heart of the American post-war era, where a spirit of reconstruction and renewal gripped the nation, coins didn't merely exchange hands, they told stories. The year was 1951. Harry S. Truman was president, the Korean War was raging, and across the American homeland, citizens were unknowingly slipping pieces of future treasure into candy machines, gas station tills, and church donation boxes. Among those humble coins was the now mythical Jefferson nickel of 1951, an ordinary 5-cent piece on the surface, yet a vault of history beneath its copper-nickel skin. And today, it's a coin whispered about in numismatic circles as carrying a fantastical face value $51 million. How did such a humble coin from a post-war minting period become worth a price that surpasses entire mansions, yachts, and art collections? What secrets does it hold in its fine details? What made it climb from a forgotten drawer to an elite collector's vault? To understand that journey, one must first venture into the design philosophy behind the Jefferson nickel itself. Created in 1938, the Jefferson nickel replaced the Buffalo nickel, a decision driven by a need for improved minting efficiency and updated design sensibilities. Felix Schlag, the German-American sculptor whose initials now rest subtly on the coin's reverse, designed the coin to reflect the stateliness of Thomas Jefferson and the architectural majesty of his Monticello estate. By 1951, the Jefferson nickel had been in circulation for over a decade. Yet that year was different. Not due to a radical redesign or a dramatic event at the mint, but because of subtle shifts that collectors would only come to appreciate decades later. 3 mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, produced the 1951 Jefferson nickel. Each mint left its signature in the form of a small mark, D for Denver, S for San Francisco, and nothing at all for Philadelphia. Though they were struck in the millions, not all nickels were born equal. The San Francisco Mint, in particular, struck far fewer nickels in 1951 than in most other years. With just under 8 million nickels minted in San Francisco, this number was significantly lower than other years and mint locations. And in numismatics, rarity is king. But it wasn't just rarity that made the 1951 nickel stand out. Over time, collectors began noticing minute variances in the strike quality, especially in the full steps of Monticello, a tiny detail on the reverse side of the coin that, when sharply struck, indicates a level of precision that elevates the coin's desirability dramatically. So began the slow rise of the 1951 Jefferson nickel from obscurity to fame. Coin collectors, often perceived as historians with a magnifying glass, started seeking out the most pristine versions of this nickel, particularly the elusive full steps versions, which showed the steps of Jefferson's Monticello home with immaculate clarity. The market began to respond. What was once worth 5 cents started being sold for dollars, then tens of dollars, and in pristine, uncirculated, full steps condition, hundreds and even thousands. Auctions began heating up. A 1951 Jefferson nickel in MS 67 full steps condition, encapsulated and graded by top agencies like pgsql or NGC, began fetching 4-figure sums. It was no longer a nickel, it was a golden ticket to numismatic prestige, but there's more. Some versions of the 1951 Jefferson nickel emerged with errors that would dazzle even the most skeptical of coin hunters. Off-center strikes, double dies, repunched mint marks, all became part of the 1951 Jefferson nickel lore. Coins that exhibited both the rare S mint mark and a double die reverse, for instance, quickly catapulted into legendary status. There are tales, too, stories passed down through collecting communities about 1951 nickels pulled from old mason jars in rural barns, found in dusty attic boxes, and one even said to have been tucked in the wallet of a World War II veteran who believed it to be his good luck charm. Whether true or not, these stories wove a sense of mystique around the coin, adding emotional value to the already growing monetary one. And then came the myth, the legend of the $51 million face value. No, it's not legal tender in that amount, of course. But for a coin to symbolize something so immense, to be discussed with such reverence, it needed a story worthy of such a title. The $51 million idea came from the minds of collectors who believed the 1951 Jefferson nickel represented not just scarcity and value, but the full breadth of American post-war optimism. The belief that even the smallest object, a 5-cent piece, could become priceless in the right light, with the right story, and in the right hands. Some even compare the 1951 Jefferson nickel to a time capsule. Hold one, and you're not just feeling the weight of a coin, you're touching a moment when America was finding its footing again after global conflict, when design and symbolism meant something, and when craftsmanship mattered. The grooves, the raised portrait of Jefferson, the columns of Monticello, they're not just engravings, they're echoes. Interestingly, while the Jefferson nickel never received the fanfare of coins like the Morgan silver dollar or the St. Gaudens double eagle, its humble consistency is part of its charm. It has been a coin of the people, carried by factory workers, teachers, soldiers, and presidents. And among those millions, the 1951 edition stands out like a rare diamond among grains of sand. Now, think of the collectors who scoured yard sales, antique shops, and dusty coin rolls from banks to find a perfect 1951 specimen. Many of them knew they might never find one. Others did, and their lives changed forever. Some sold their rare nickel for a down payment on a home. Others refused to sell, keeping their treasures as heirlooms passed from one generation to the next. One collector was even rumored to have rejected a $250,000 offer for his MS 67 full steps 1951 S, calling it irreplaceable. That collector's grandson, decades later, still keeps it in a sealed acrylic case as the family's proudest legacy. It's coins like the 1951 Jefferson nickel that give collecting its soul. Not every piece needs to be adorned with gold or struck in platinum to be extraordinary. Sometimes, it's the everyday object, overlooked and undervalued, that proves to be the rarest of all. The coin world has seen its share of anomalies. From the 1943 bronze Lincoln penny to the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, jaw-dropping finds have surfaced throughout history. But there's something about the Jefferson nickel series, particularly the 1951, that grips collectors with a unique allure. Maybe it's because it represents continuity. From war to peace, from industry to invention, the Jefferson nickel stood as a silent witness to it all. As we step further into the digital age, where crypto and contactless payments replace clinking change, these coins grow even more precious. They are relics of tactile history, objects you can hold, examine, and pass along with a story. And the 1951 Jefferson nickel, with its supposed $51 million mystique, is the crown jewel of that legacy. For those inspired by the tales of this historic coin, the journey doesn't end here. It leads you deeper into vaults of discovery. Into dusty boxes in attics. Into the pockets of old coats hanging in forgotten closets. It leads you to flea markets, estate sales, and online auctions. And who knows? Perhaps one day, you'll hold a 1951 Jefferson nickel in your palm and realize you've grasped not just a coin, but a piece of the American spirit. And just when you think the journey is over, another door opens, because if the 1951 Jefferson nickel could rise to mythical status, imagine what lies ahead in the wheat fields of history. The wheat penny, another humble coin, holds tales of equal wonder. From the 1909 SVDB to the 1944 steel planchet era, these pennies too have gone from forgotten change to high-stakes treasure. So, if this story stirred something in you, if it made you glance at your spare change a little differently, if it reminded you that even the smallest things can carry big value, then remember to like and subscribe, because the hunt for history is far from over. And tomorrow's treasure might already be in your pocket. Stay curious. Keep collecting. And never underestimate a nickel, especially one from 1951. Next, 1958, the world was seeing transformation at an incredible pace. The Cold War loomed large, space exploration was beginning to captivate minds, and in the quiet corners of American commerce, the minting of coins continued without interruption. Among these small pieces of metal exchanged daily by millions of people, the 1958 Jefferson nickel emerged not merely as a means of currency, but as a symbol of continuity, design, and quiet historical value. While countless coins were minted and circulated through hands, registers, and pockets, only a few ever earned a legacy. The 1958 Jefferson nickel would go on to be one such coin, now rumored to carry a face value of $58 million in the world of collectors, enthusiasts, and historians, not for its metal content, but for the legend it has become. To understand why a simple 5-cent coin from 1958 could ever command such attention, one must journey back through its origin story, to the halls of the U.S. Mint, the legacy of Thomas Jefferson, and the evolution of American numismatics. The Jefferson nickel had been introduced in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel after a 25-year run. The new design was meant to celebrate the third President of the United States and the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. The obverse of the coin displayed a left-facing profile of Jefferson, created by artist Felix Schlag, whose design was selected in a national competition. The reverse bore a depiction of Monticello, Jefferson's estate in Virginia. By 1958, the Jefferson nickel had become a mainstay of American currency. That year, two main minting facilities were responsible for striking the nickel, Philadelphia and Denver. No mint mark was used on coins struck in Philadelphia, while those from Denver bore a small D mark on the reverse side. Although the mintage numbers for the 1958 nickels were not extraordinarily low, with more than 168 million from Philadelphia and over 168 million from Denver, the historical intrigue surrounding this particular year and its connection to other rare coin series, especially the wheat penny, has played a substantial role in elevating the status of the 1958 Jefferson nickel in the eyes of collectors. Collectors often begin with seemingly ordinary coins. They might find a worn nickel in their pocket change and become intrigued. Some of these everyday discoveries end up leading collectors to remarkable pieces, errors, proofs, and rare strikes, that become legendary. The 1958 Jefferson nickel, over the years, has drawn attention for several such reasons. There are believed to be a handful of error coins from this year that contain die breaks, off-center strikes, double dies, and even transitional planchets, coins struck on metal blanks intended for other denominations. Each of these variations adds a layer of value, history, and mystery. There are whispered rumors in collector circles of 1958 nickels accidentally struck on silver planchets, or hybrid coins bearing the image of Jefferson but formed from materials or dyes that didn't belong to that year. These stories, though often unverified, create an aura of myth that attracts attention, investment, and speculation. Equally compelling is the connection between the 1958 Jefferson nickel and the final year of the wheat penny. The Lincoln wheat cent, first minted in 1909, was another American coin that captured public attention for its beauty, symbolism, and design. The wheat reverse design came to an end in 1958, replaced in 1959 with the Lincoln Memorial reverse. That meant 1958 was the last year that two iconic coin designs, Jefferson's nickel and the wheat penny, shared the same annual imprint. This shared finality created a sense of nostalgia and historical synergy. Collectors often view 1958 as a pivotal moment in U.S. coin history, a symbolic close to a design era. The crossover appeal of the 1958 Jefferson nickel comes in part from those who collect wheat pennies. Enthusiasts who dedicated their passion to Lincoln cents often found themselves drawn to the 1958 nickel due to its shared timeline and complementary aesthetic. This created a fusion of markets, one not purely nickel collectors and one not purely penny collectors, but a new class of collector who viewed 1958 as a historical turning point in mid-century coinage. With demand increased and limited pristine examples surviving the decades, prices for top-condition 1958 nickels began to rise. It's in the world of grading that this coin's value took a dramatic turn. In numismatics, condition is everything. A coin that might be worth mere cents in circulated condition could fetch hundreds or thousands in mint state. For the 1958 Jefferson nickel, coins graded MS-67 or higher by the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, or the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, are exceedingly rare. Only a tiny fraction of the original mintages have survived in such pristine condition. Some of these have sold for thousands of dollars in private auctions, estate sales, and coin shows. The record prices are not just a function of condition, but of scarcity, demand, and provenance. A coin once owned by a famous collector or discovered under mysterious circumstances will often garner a premium far beyond its physical qualities. There are tales of a pristine 1958 nickel found in a mason jar buried beneath a farmhouse in Iowa, preserved by the dry Midwestern air and the luck of decades underground. Another specimen was said to have been passed down through 3 generations, untouched and kept in a sealed envelope alongside a letter describing its place in family lore. Whether myth or fact, these stories elevate value, ignite imagination, and bring humanity to the collecting experience. The face value of $58 million attributed to the 1958 Jefferson nickel is, of course, symbolic, a way to encapsulate the coin's historical worth, mythic status, and the admiration it inspires. But for collectors, history buffs, and those who see coins as keys to the past, the number has resonance. It's not just about metal and minting, it's about the people who've held the coin, the stories it's traveled with, and the cultural legacy it represents. Coin collecting is a passion built not solely on the market but on meaning. And meaning is what elevates the mundane to the monumental. What adds further intrigue to this story is the evolution of the coin market itself. Over the past decade, coin collecting has gone digital. Online marketplaces, social media groups, and virtual auctions have brought coins like the 1958 Jefferson nickel into the spotlight. Short videos, live stream reveals, and unboxing moments have transformed coins into viral phenomena. The sight of a gloved hand flipping a lustrous nickel under ring lights, accompanied by gasps and chat comments, has made the humble 5-cent piece a 21st century star. Suddenly, a coin once relegated to a sock drawer or forgotten piggy bank can become the centerpiece of a multi-million-view TikTok video or a high-stakes bidding war on eBay. This attention has fueled the myth. Every time a new coin is discovered, every time an old drawer is opened and a nickel glints in the light, people wonder, could it be the one? Could this be the $58 million coin? Could this be the legend reborn? The power of belief, the mystery of rarity, and the historical magnetism of Jefferson's image create a perfect storm of numismatic energy. Whether the coin ever truly sells for such a staggering figure or not almost doesn't matter. In the minds of the community, the lore is real, and that's where value lives. Now, as modern collectors hunt for gems in junk drawers, it's important to remember that the 1958 Jefferson nickel is not alone in its significance. It is part of a grander narrative of American coinage. Alongside it, the 1958 wheat penny, the last of its kind, shares the same legendary year. Together, they form a pair of historical bookends, 2 coins that encapsulate the close of an era. Holding one in each hand, a collector touches not just metal but time itself. Coins like the 1958 Jefferson nickel remind us that history is never far. It may be in your change jar, your grandfather's desk, or forgotten in a coin roll from the bank. These pieces invite us to look closer, to ask questions, to cherish the small and seemingly insignificant. In doing so, they give us access to stories larger than ourselves. So if you're watching this video and you've made it to the end, remember, the world of coin collecting is full of hidden treasure, not just in value but in story. The 1958 Jefferson nickel, with a symbolic face value of $58 million, is more than just a nickel. It's a piece of American heritage, a conversation starter, and a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary things can carry extraordinary meaning. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories of big money hidden in small coins. Up next, we're diving into the wheat penny, a legendary U.S. coin whose journey from farm fields to fine collections is one for the ages. Next, 1953 wheat penny USA coin, the realm of American numismatics. Few coins carry the rich blend of historical significance, collector intrigue, and financial mystique quite like the 1953 Jefferson nickel. Cast in a time when the United States was transitioning from the hardships of the Second World War into the complex social and economic shifts of the Cold War era, the 1953 Jefferson nickel emerged not just as a utilitarian coin but as a silent witness to changing times, sentiments, and the undercurrents of American history. Now, more than 70 years later, this humble 5-cent piece has transcended its original purpose, morphing into a coveted relic whose worth far exceeds its face value, estimated by some collectors and numismatic experts to possess a speculative face value as high as $53 million. not in metal, but in historical and collectible worth. To understand why this coin has become such a phenomenon, one must travel back to the year 1953 itself. Dwight D. Eisenhower had just been inaugurated as President of the United States, succeeding Harry S. Truman. The Korean War was still ongoing, casting a long shadow over both domestic and international affairs. America was bracing itself against communism, and the Red Scare loomed large over every household. Against this backdrop, everyday objects like coins were minted and circulated without fanfare, yet decades later, these objects tell stories that textbooks often omit. The 1953 Jefferson nickel was minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each minting facility had its own mintmark, or in the case of Philadelphia, the lack of one. While tens of millions were produced across these 3 mints, it's the nuances in dies, minting errors, strike quality, and preservation conditions that have elevated certain 1953 nickels from spare change to national treasure status. Some rare specimens display repunched mintmarks, double die obverse, or anomalous planchets. These varieties, sometimes unnoticed by the average coin user, become holy grails to seasoned collectors, but it's not just about errors. It's about stories. It's about the boy in 1953 who tucked away a nickel given by his grandfather, only to rediscover it in a shoebox in 2023, now worth thousands at auction. It's about the collector who spotted a deep cameo-proof Jefferson nickel from 1953 in an estate sale, purchased for pennies, and flipped it for a small fortune. It's about the coin shows where whispers of rare 1953 nickels fetch bidding wars that rival fine art. And in each of these anecdotes lies a deeper truth: the cultural and emotional value of the 1953 Jefferson nickel is immeasurable. As we dig deeper into the origins of this coin, the design becomes central to its enduring appeal. The obverse, featuring a left-facing bust of Thomas Jefferson designed by artist Felix Schlag, remains a testament to classic American coinage. Jefferson's stoic expression, refined yet unpretentious, mirrors the gravitas of the time. The reverse displays Jefferson's Virginia home, Monticello, in clean neoclassical lines. This architectural tribute ties the coin not just to a man, but to a philosophy, an era where ideals like liberty and democracy were reasserted in every printed bill and minted coin. Yet, like all things rooted in legacy, the 1953 Jefferson nickel holds layers that go beyond metal and mintage. The alloys themselves, made primarily of copper and nickel, were carefully balanced to serve both durability and budget constraints in post-war America. The treasury needed coins that would stand the test of commerce and time. Who could have known that these base metals, minted en masse, would one day generate headlines for their numismatic significance? Of course, every Jefferson nickel from 1938 to the early 1960s shares a similar profile. So why the emphasis on 1953? The answer lies in rarity and context. While the 1953 nickels are not the rarest by mintage numbers alone, many have been lost, damaged, or corroded over the decades. Those remaining in mint state, especially in MS-66 or higher grades, are relatively scarce. Certified specimens with pristine luster, full steps on Monticello, and no contact marks become hot commodities at auctions. These factors, combined with the public's increasing fascination with mid-20th century Americana, give the 1953 issue a unique shine. Certain auction houses have seen select 1953 nickels fetch staggering prices, particularly when associated with unique errors or exceptional grades. A 1953 S. Jefferson nickel with full steps can reach over $10,000 depending on its condition. A proof version with ultra cameo contrast could leap beyond that, depending on timing, interest, and provenance. Collectors are willing to shell out impressive sums for pieces that connect them to a specific slice of American life, whether that's the early Cold War years, the Eisenhower presidency, or a childhood memory triggered by a gleaming nickel. And then, there is the lore. As with all collectible coins, urban legends and whispers of a super rare 1953 variant stoke the fires of collector obsession. Stories circulate online of a misstruck 1953 nickel with an off-metal planchet or double denomination strike. While official verification remains elusive in some cases, even the hint of possibility keeps eyes glued to coin rolls, flea market bins, and estate sale trays. For some, the dream of uncovering $1 million nickel remains tantalizingly real, but what truly drives the surge in value isn't just supply and demand, it's nostalgia. The 1953 Jefferson nickel has become a vehicle of memory. To older generations, it recalls a simpler time. To younger collectors, it's a tangible piece of a storied past they never lived but deeply admire. Combine that with social media amplification, viral coin hunting videos, and online coin appraisal platforms, and you have a perfect storm of attention. One viral post about a rare 1953 nickel found in grandma's drawer can drive hundreds of thousands of views and rekindle interest in coin collecting among new generations. Interestingly, some economists and collectors use a speculative face value analogy to describe the coin's cultural worth. While the real face value remains 5 cents, in these narratives, the 1953 Jefferson nickel is often said to carry a metaphorical value, $53 million, not due to a literal appraisal, but to emphasize its outsized impact on numismatic culture and the collective American imagination. It becomes a symbol, much like the wheat penny or the 1943 steel cent, coins whose monetary worth may vary, but whose cultural gravity remains undisputed. As the years pass, the 1953 Jefferson nickel continues to be featured in collector guides, auction catalogs, and enthusiast forums. It's discussed in podcasts, shown in YouTube videos with dramatic close-ups, and evaluated under microscopes by graders at pgsql and NGC. Each new discovery, a die clash here, a full step there, adds to the mythology. For many, owning one isn't about investment. It's about connection. Connection to a time, a history, a lineage of American craftsmanship and ideals, and just when you think its story has peaked, the coin surprises again. A new hoard discovered in a forgotten vault. A pristine proof emerging from an untouched album. A young collector flipping a 1953 nickel for enough to pay for college. These are the living stories that keep the coin alive in public consciousness. These are the reasons it keeps trending, keeps sparking debate, and keeps commanding prices that make casual observers do a double take. The 1953 Jefferson nickel represents more than numismatics. It's a microcosm of the American experience. It's about resilience, transition, the interplay between utility and beauty, the migration from pocket change to priceless artifact. It reminds us that history can be held in our hands, and that even the smallest objects can tell the biggest stories. As with all great tales of treasure and time, the end is never truly the end. The journey of the 1953 Jefferson nickel is ongoing, with new discoveries and appreciations emerging year after year. And for those who hold one, whether in a glass case, a family drawer, or the palm of their hand, it serves as a reminder that value isn't always about numbers. Sometimes, it's about legacy, and if you're captivated by stories like these, coins that transcend their metal and mint, don't forget to like this story, subscribe for more historical coin journeys, and stay tuned for our next deep dive into the fascinating world of American currency. Up next, the timeless story of the legendary wheat penny and how it too became worth big money in the saga of U.S. coins.